show. We are live on YouTube tonight. We're going to be diving into SEC baseball. We're going to get started with our player of the week, and then we're going to dive into winners of week one in SEC play, biggest losers of week one in SEC play, and then we're going to break down the upcoming weekend series. Before we get started, I know Auburn is up big right now on Georgia Tech, a really good midweek game. Last I saw, 9-2. That game could even be over by now. But shout out to Auburn for getting a huge win at home, and Andreas Alvarez struck out 10 through 5 tonight. So, diving right into player of the week, I'm gonna stick with an Auburn Tiger this week, or this from this past weekend. My player of the week is Jake Marciano, the Friday night guy for the Auburn Tigers. Went 7 innings, gave up 2 hits, and struck out seven to just one walk. Completely shut down a Missouri offense that has had a lot of firepower up to this point this season. So Marciano's my player of the week. Kevin, who do you have for player of the week this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go to South Carolina, and I'm going to stay with pitching. Josh Gunther, he went to Florida and pitched 6 innings of no-hit ball Friday night in a game that South Carolina actually went into the night with a combined no-hitter and was one out away in the ninth of a no-hitter. Now, granted, this was a 0-0 game, and going into the ninth inning, South Carolina also only had one hit. So it was a pitcher's duel that Florida ended up winning in the 10th, 1-0. But Gunther, Florida's a solid hitting team, and he went 6 innings. He has proven to be a good, solid number one starter for South Carolina if they could just get some run support. So he would be my player of the week as he really competed to give South Carolina a chance to win that game. Sweets, what about you?
My player of the week is T.J. Pompey from Arkansas. He hit a walk off solo shot in the bottom of the ninth to get the opening win against Mississippi State, which propelled Arkansas to a 2-1 series win over Mississippi State. They were ranked third coming into the weekend. Arkansas was ranked fifth, so it wasn't a huge upset or anything, but that set the tone for the series. Mississippi State. Expected better. Dropped 2 out of 3. Not a bad showing, but Pompey, coming from Texas Tech, has had a fantastic season. He hit 444 for the weekend with that home run and a couple of ribs. Played it great in the outfield, so he's my player of the week. Where's that going to take us to, DMAC?
Yeah, if our three players of the week don't make a pro baseball career, the accounting firm of Marciano, Gunther, and Pompey really has something to it there. So we're gonna
It
dive
might be an attorney.
into, yeah, could be attorneys. They've got some powerful names there for signage. That's for sure. We're gonna dive into our biggest winners of the week. I'll get things started. I'm gonna go with the Kentucky Wildcats sweeping Oklahoma or sweeping Alabama. Yeah, they did not get as much out of Ben Cleaver this week as they would have liked. He was pulled extremely early in the Saturday game. So for them to not have their pitching staff play as good as it is, and still get a weekend series sweep is huge for them. They're a team that steals a lot of bases, but they hit a bunch of home runs this weekend, which is not in the normal Kentucky Wildcat DNA. So they could be onto something here if they continue to swing the bats well, have a little more power than they have in the past. We know they can steal a ton of bases. I think they've stolen 65 on the year, 64 on the season so far. So they're still stealing a lot of bases, but put the power bats to work a little bit more this past weekend. Kevin, who's your winner of the week?
So my winner of the week, I'm gonna go. Let me go with Dave Van Horn in Arkansas. They beat Mississippi State 2 out of 3. All 3 games were games that could have went either way, and that Mississippi State led at some point in all 3 games. Uh, and just it goes back to prove that once you get into the SEC play, that Dave Van Horn is always going to put his team in the top part of the SEC because I still believe Mississippi State is a top 5 team, and Arkansas being able to get 2 out of 3 at home, I think, was crucial for them. And then, again, they would just be my winner. Sweets, what about you?
Okay, I'm going to go with the Florida Gators. Sweeping South Carolina wasn't the biggest surprise of the weekend, but the fact that people were questioning Kevin O'Sullivan and how Florida had looked coming into SEC play, there were a lot of concerns about their inability to put the bat on the ball. They weren't pitching as well as people had liked. Blah blah blah. They're 3-0 in conference play. They're sitting at 18-3 on the season. And they're in fast to get up 3-0 that first series of the season is, it's immeasurable in what it does for you. So the big series sweep for Florida, and that's my team of the week, DMAC.
Yeah, so that's going to bring us into the losers of the week. I will get things started with, man, few options here, but I'm going to take the flip side of Kentucky. I'm going to take the Alabama Crimson Tide. They were able to get Cleaver out of a game early, still could not capitalize. Outside of Justin LeBron, this team is not producing a lot of good at bats. Their pitching staff has some talent, but they're getting hit pretty hard this year. When Kentucky's hitting multiple home runs a game against you, it is not a good sign for what's to come in the rest of the SEC. So Bama would be my biggest loser from week 1. Kevin, who do you have?
Well, I'm going to keep it close to home and go with a home team, and that would be LSU. To me, losing game 1, a Friday night game, when I think of an LSU team, I don't think of an LSU team having a Friday night pitching staff that ends up giving up 13 runs and, really suffered from a walk category. The first 2 games, they had over 20, I think it was 21 walks they ended up with in the first 2 games. And to me, that's just not an LSU pitching staff. Now, I do think that will get corrected. I think Yeski will get the pitching and they will throw strikes as they get into the season. But to me, that has to be a huge disappointment for them. And even though they won game 3 Sunday, and they started out, for the first 4 innings, basically shutout baseball. I think they gave up 1 run into the 5th and for Schmidt, but they still ended up winning that game like 16-9, 16-11. So LSU lost 2 out of 3, but it's not just that they lost; it's how they lost. I think they should have won 2 out of 3. Go to the 9th up 12-10 and end up losing on a walk-off home run. That's just not what I picture and envision from an LSU tradition baseball-wise. At least they didn't get swept. If you get swept in the SEC, it really hurts you. If you go on the road and the worst scenario is that you lose 2 out of 3, you can come back home and get those back. So I'll say that. And I still think that the team has a chance to have a lot of quality. There's a lot of things out of the weekend that I give them credit for. I think their hitting came around. I like it. With Stanfield batting 9th, kind of a second leadoff, Milam leading off, Curiel batting 3rd, Brown batting 2nd. I think the lineup showed an ability to get runs, so I think that's a positive. But they've got to put it all together. Pitching's got to get consistent. They've got good arms, so that would be my loser. Sweets, what about you?
My loser of the week is former LSU skipper Paul Mainieri and the South Carolina Gamecocks. They're 12-10 on the season. Started off 0-3 in SEC play. They're hitting 260 on the year, inconsistent at the plate. inconsistent pitching, inconsistent everything. For whatever reason, they've got a little talent on the squad. South Carolina shouldn't be an awful baseball program, and that's what they are right now. Without Will Craddock, I mean, things would be a lot worse without him doing what he's done so far this season. So, nobody expected South Carolina to be at the upper half of the SEC this season, but if they don't turn it around quickly, I think there will be an exit for Coach Mainieri here soon. What do you think, DMAC?
Yeah, that they've got to get things together there. So that is going to bring us to our first series of little Thursday, Friday, Saturday series with the LSU Tigers and the Oklahoma Sooners. LSU's 14-7, 1-2 in SEC play, and you've got Oklahoma who's 17-3, 2-1 in SEC play. But this is Oklahoma's first road game of the season this Thursday. And you look at the pitching staffs here, you're gonna have Cam Johnson for Oklahoma going out on Thursday night, who through his first couple of starts looked really good. It only walked seven guys through 21 innings and some change. He walked 7 through 2 1/3 this past week. You get Kason Evans, the other Thursday night guy for LSU, who's battled some adversity in the early parts of the season. When I look at these two teams, LSU is sitting at a 5.24 team ERA, which is last in the SEC. Oklahoma's sitting about middle of the pack with a 3.66, but Oklahoma is a top 5 hitting team in the SEC right now, hitting 315. The Tigers are hitting 288. So, to me, this Friday game or this Thursday game, I think could go either way. When you look at Saturday, you've got Cooper Moore and LJ Mercurius going. Cooper Moore's 3-2 with a 3.2 ERA, 35 punch outs. Mercurius has a 1.59 ERA, 41 punch outs to just 8 walks, I believe. I give Oklahoma the pitching edge on Saturday. And then Sunday, when you've got William Schmidt and what is it, Rager Cord or Cord Rager, can't remember what his name is at the moment. But, he's a freshman. William Schmidt has looked really good, boasting a 3.12 ERA right now. So to me, for LSU to get a series win at home this weekend, they're going to need a little bit more from their pitching. And the bats were alive in Vanderbilt, but they're going to need the bats to stay alive and take good at bats, especially Thursday with Cam Johnson, who has kind of reverted back to what he had been his freshman and sophomore year last weekend. Can you stay in there, take quality ABs, not swing at pitches outside of the zone, drive his pitch count way up on a Thursday, and get an early win? I think whoever wins this game on Friday or on Thursday likely wins this series 2-1. I'm not going to make a prediction for a sweep in this one. I am actually going to take LSU to get 2 out of 3 at home this weekend. I think the bats were much improved. Still a lot of work to do, hitting 288 as a ball club right now. But the Vanderbilt series at least left me a little bit more hopeful from the plate. And you've got to bet on the Tigers pitching staff putting it together at some point. A lot of key pieces from a championship team last year are back, obviously in elevated roles, but this is a really, really talented pitching staff for LSU. And if the bats start to work, this team could be dangerous down the stretch. But if they lose Thursday, you can almost take it to the bank that Oklahoma wins 2 out of 3. What are your thoughts on this series, Kevin?
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting series in the fact that you've got Oklahoma's pitching, which has been really good this year, against LSU, who's been up and down hitting wise. I think Friday night's the real key. Um, Evans for LSU, Cam Johnson for Oklahoma. Who of those two pitchers is going to emerge with a quality start for their team? Johnson's been good this year, but with the exception of his first SEC outing, he did slip back into the Cam Johnson of his freshman and sophomore year. Struggled for control. I think he had 6 walks and he was out of the game. So I like LSU to get 2 out of 3. I think they win Friday night. I think Saturday's a toss-up. I think LSU has a huge advantage in Game 3. All that being said, do we see a change in the rotation? Does Moore move to Thursday? Does Schmidt move to Friday? Or does he move to Saturday, stay on Saturday in that third slot, Evans slide back? That gives him a chance a week from now to maybe move Schmidt to Friday night, one day advance. I'm curious to see how that plays out. But I think LSU gets 2 out of 3. But don't discount Oklahoma's lineup. They had a really big series win against A&M this past weekend, and they had to outscore A&M to do it. They scored double-digit runs in 2 games. So I think that's the thing that when people think about Oklahoma, they think of their pitching, which has been good. But Brendan Brock's been a really good hitter. Gamble's been timely. Walk's had moments. Jackson Willits, their shortstop's been really good. Hit a home run in the Friday night game that was key to them winning against Texas A&M. So they've Cam Johnson, their third baseman, has been very consistent in every game. Honestly, maybe their most consistent hitter that they've had. And again, their threat to steal bases. That last point I'll make there with stolen bases, that is one thing I would say I'm concerned about LSU in this series. They've not been really tested from a team that will go out and steal bases. And look, Oklahoma's going to do that. They're going to test them. And can Aaron Beatty step up and be that guy? I don't know. I have some concerns there defensively. So I think LSU wins 2 out of 3, but I think it's a very interesting series, and how it plays out is going to be very interesting, much like Vanderbilt last weekend. Sweet, your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, we need more consistent pitching. Giving up what was it, 11-9 or 12-11-9. That's not going to get you many wins against any schedule, much less an SEC schedule. So you definitely need to see some better work out of our starters. Obviously, they need to get deeper into games and give the bullpen a chance. That being said, when you get to Guidry and you give him the ball late in the game, you expect him not to hang one that gets hit to the moon. So it's kind of stinks because you felt like that's one that slipped away from you, and we should have won that series 2-1. But that's baseball. That's the way it goes sometimes. Just need more consistent pitching. The hitting came around, and I kind of felt like it would. Like I said, it's only mid-March right now. These kids are starting to get into the swing of things. Now is when you separate the wheat from the chaff, if you will. So LSU just needs to get more consistent pitching, and we'll be fine. I think LSU wins the series 2-1, if not sweep. Bold prediction, huh? Or would you like to go next, D-Mac?
Yeah, that's gonna take us to Kentucky Ole Miss, and Sweets, you can get us started on this one.
Okay, Kentucky, big sweep coming into the weekend. So 3-0, sitting on top of the conference. How many say? I think you said they had 65 stolen bases on the year. Had a fantastic weekend hitting the ball in their opening series. It looks like Thursday night. Ole Miss will go with Hunter Elliott, and he will face either Riker Walton or Mason Moore. It appears. These are probable matchups here. I apologize. I do like Ole Miss hitting the ball series 2 hitting team overall. Kentucky was fantastic this last week, but I think Ole Miss is going to come back and get this one 2-1 this weekend. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I like this series a lot. Kentucky traveling to Ole Miss for a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I am eager to see if we're going to see Cade Townsend for Ole Miss pitch this weekend. He left with an injury early last week. If he doesn't go, Taylor Rabe is probably your next man up for that Friday spot. You look at this Ole Miss team with Becerra and Udermark. They've combined for 19 home runs and 55 RBIs this season. But outside of those two guys, Colin Reuters hit well. Will Furness has. But when their starting catcher in Austin Follies hitting buck 67, you look at Braden Randall hitting 224. So they're outside of a few power bats. I don't love this Ole Miss lineup. I do like Hunter Elliott a lot. His walks are up a little bit this year. 38 punch outs to 18 walks right now. He's also given up 6 home runs so far this season. You look over at Kentucky, they've stolen 64 bases on the year. Jace Thurnish is definitely their lead bat, hitting 373. Couple home runs. Ethan Hindle has kind of been the catalyst from a power standpoint with 6 home runs and 25 RBIs. Jackson Jelkin will be your Thursday night guy with Ben Cleaver going the next day on Friday, and Nate Harris. I am actually going to flip this around a little bit. I'm going to take Kentucky to get 2 out of 3 on the road early season against this Ole Miss squad. And I think Ole Miss is a good team. Don't get me wrong, but I think Kentucky's doing a few things special right now. Had a good weekend at the plate from a power standpoint. Really good pitching staff. So give me the Wildcats to take 2 out of 3. Kevin, who do you like in this Ole Miss Kentucky series?
So it's at Ole Miss, so that makes it very interesting to me. Ole Miss has played a little better than I thought, and again, they manufacture wins. I was not surprised they got 1 out of 3 at Texas, even though I really thought Texas would sweep them. But how they got the first game on Friday was surprising. Again, they outscored them and hit them. So, Friday night game will be a good game with Jelkin and Elliott. And so that'll be two really good pitchers going at each other, and I would probably favor Ole Miss in that game. That being said, 1 through 9, I like Kentucky's batting order better than I like Ole Miss's. Ole Miss has some, really good hitters, but I really like 1 through 9 Kentucky's lineup better to score runs and that aspect of it. When I look at defensively, I would have to say I also like Kentucky defensively better than Ole Miss. That. And then when I look at the 3 pitchers, I think Ole Miss has a chance to get Friday night. I'm going to knock on wood when I say this. I think Kentucky has big advantages in games 2 and 3. Now, that being said, there's something more to the Ben Cleaver story than what we're being told. He's not thrown over 60, 70 pitches in a game. The most he's been in is 4 innings that he's thrown. He did get pulled at right around 40 pitches, and it was just in the first inning against Bama. Once that kind of blew up, I think they just decided to get him out and not take him any deeper into the pitch count. So that makes game 2 very interesting to me. But once you get to game 3 with Harris and Libbert, I really think that advantage goes to Kentucky. So Kentucky, swept week 1. Ole Miss won 1 out of 3, but against a very good Texas team. I'm going to go Kentucky 2 out of 3. It's hard to pick against an SEC team at home. Ole Miss has a great home field advantage at home, and they're a good team. But I think Kentucky is a solid baseball team. Good pitching, good defense, very strong up the middle, and they steal bases, and they got a few guys that can hit it. So I'm going to go Kentucky in this series 2 out of 3 with their pitching and a couple. Probably the 2 games that they win, they'll have to eke out. But it's not just their starters. They've got a lot of depth in that bullpen too. So give me Kentucky 2 out of 3 in this one.
Yeah, so that's going to bring us to Missouri and Tennessee. Want to get us started there, Kevin?
So this series is at Tennessee. To me, it's a series that Tennessee needs, coming off a very hard-fought series with Georgia. In that series, Georgia won 2 out of 3, but Kentucky led Game 3 in the 7th, 8th inning, and Callaway had a home run to put Georgia top 8-6. And Tennessee had a home run by Lawless, stolen at the end of the game, brought back in by Cole Johnson to give Georgia that series.
It was a pop out.
That series sweep. No, it was. Hey, he went up, he climbed the wall and got it. I know it's an FO7, but you got to give him credit for the play.
4-7.
You got to give him credit for the play. It wasn't just an ordinary play. So, look, Missouri battled Auburn, and I think Auburn's a top 10 team. And Missouri in the games 1 and games 2, they could have won those games. They were right there. And Missouri's pitching was better. Auburn, I think, has really good pitching. So I'm not going to say anything against Missouri's bats because I think they've proven that they can hit the ball this year. But their pitching was better. McDavid was good. Pimentel was good Friday and Saturday. But I think going to Tennessee, here's what I think. I think Tegan Coons is going to have a really good game Friday night against this Missouri lineup. And when you look at Coons, Landon Mack, and Blanco, that's 3 really good starters. It's not a good series for Missouri to follow up. Playing Auburn at home to go to a wounded Tennessee team that just lost 2 out of 3, that's going to want to get every one of these games to get themselves back in the top part of the conference play. And I think you'll see a very hungry Tennessee team. I think you'll see a very hungry crowd. I think a very hostile crowd for Missouri to go into. I think it's going to be a very tough series for Missouri to get a game. So I think last week I might have gave Missouri a shot to win one. Really felt like they'd get swept. But I think this weekend Missouri for sure gets swept. I don't even know if these games, I don't see a 1-run game in these. I think probably Tennessee wins these by at least 2 or 3. I give Tennessee a strong advantage here at home with the pitching staff they have and the lineup. Any thoughts, Sweets?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Tennessee is hungry. I think they come back and win the series. I don't know that they'll sweep, but I think they at least get 2 out of 3. Manny Marin leading the team with a 377 average, hitting the ball really well. Henry Ford following him up at 353 with 2 home runs, 15 RBIs. Tennessee's just got to be a little more consistent. And they were literally a foot away from winning the series against Georgia. Kid did make a hell of a play on that pop-up to left field, but that's baseball. You got to you got to make the plays, and that's a part of it. I think though that Tennessee is just a much better team. I think they've got more talent, and for as great as Mizzou was in the non-conference schedule, now they're in SEC play, and while they've improved, I still think they're a lower tier team. I like Tennessee to win the series, and I'm going to go for a sweep too. D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm going a little bit different than you guys on this one. This is the Tennessee fan base that is not happy right now. And there's pressure applied on a first-year coach here. That is when mistakes happen. You look at Carrick Jackson in Mizzou. He's coaching as free as can be. He is just going out there, leaving everything on the field week in, week out. This is a Tennessee team that has not hit the ball well outside of a few guys, mainly Manny Marin, Henry Ford. Those are really the only 2 guys that are really seeing the ball well. and this is a much improved Missouri pitching staff. I'm rolling with Mizzou here. I love what they're doing with Tyler Macon, who can play center field, first base, pretty much anywhere. Caden Pierre Sills. You've got Cameron Benson. You've got a really good outfield here. Even though we're playing in a really small ballpark this weekend, which does help for power hitters like Stone Lawless to get it over the fence, and Lindsey Neal there. I'm taking Missouri to win 2 out of 3 this weekend. That is not me saying I think they're going to Omaha or anything, but this is a Missouri team that's going to win 3 or 4 series this year. And I think they get that started this week in Tennessee, in Knoxville, with pressure applied to Elander. Things happen when your back's up against the wall a little bit. Mistakes can happen. So give me Mizzou this weekend to take 2 out of 3. And that brings us to my favorite series of the weekend, which is this Texas Auburn series.
Lead us off. Lead us off.
Auburn is now 18-2 with a win over Georgia Tech tonight. Texas is 18-1. I love this Friday night pitching battle. You've got Jake Marciano with a .93 ERA, 42 punch outs to 2 walks in 29 innings. And then you've got Ruger Riojas with a 2.05 ERA through 26 and a third with 50 punch outs to 4 walks. These are 2 guys who pound the strike zone. I mean, you're talking 92 punch outs for these 2 guys combined. Texas is hitting 335. Auburn's hitting 311. You've got the McClain brothers that are both hitting over 300, with Brandon hitting 448. Bristol Carter for Auburn hitting really well, a little over 400. And then you look over at this Texas team. Aiden Robbins is hitting 382. Anthony Pack Jr., the freshman, hitting 354. You've got Casey Borba hitting over 350. Ethan Mendoza hitting 325. Bixera for the third baseman hitting 343. These are 2 lineups that can hit and pitch at an elite level. Auburn has a team ERA of 2.33. Texas has a 2.54 ERA. So I love a low scoring Friday night showdown between these 2 teams. And then you go over to Saturday, and you're going to have Luke Harrison and Jackson Sanders, who both have ERAs below 3. I think this is the game on Saturday that a few more runs can be scored. And then I love the pitching duel. I give Texas a little bit of an edge on Sunday with Dylan Volantis. Struck out 40 through 29 and a third, 1.53 ERA. But Alex Petrovic with a 2.0 ERA is nothing to laugh at either, with 31 punch outs through 26. These are going to be some really competitive games all weekend. I am going to give Texas a slight edge to go 2-1 this weekend overall. The Friday night game is going to be low scoring. One of these teams is going to make a late hit, but it would not surprise me if, when these starters are pulled after 5, 6, 7 innings, it's a 0-0 game on Friday. But give me the Longhorns to take 2 out of 3. And that is going to, let's go over to your 3 with your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, great matchup, great match. Probably the best matchup in the country this weekend. Two staffs that are just pitching lights out. They're hitting lights out, playing fantastic defense. They're stealing bases. Auburn Goes to Georgia Tech tonight and this afternoon and gets a win. Tech is a top 10 team. Just a ton of talent there. I'm going to take Auburn to get 2 out of 3 against the Longhorns this weekend. I really like the way they're playing ball. They got the McCranes at the top lineup. Brandon McCrane's hitting 448 and he's 7 for 7 in steals. He's got Bristol Carter, who's 16 to 17 on the stolen base department, hitting 404. Chase Fralick hitting 360 with 5 bombs. He leads the team with 5 home runs. So Auburn's hitting the ball well, playing well, and baseball's it's just tough to sweep teams. I like Auburn 2-1 here. Kev?
So I like Auburn in this series, and I'm going to tell you why. So I think Butch Thompson is one of the best coaches in the SEC. I've referenced this before. I think this year he climbs into that top group with Schlossnagle and Jay Johnson and Van Horn and those guys. And then I combine that with how they play at home. When in 23, when LSU won the College World Series, Auburn won 2 out of 3. Last year, LSU wins the College World Series, and Auburn sweeps them in Auburn. They're a very tough team to beat at their place. Again, when you look at good baseball teams are strong up the middle. This Auburn team's really good defensively and strong up the middle. They don't make errors. They have good pitching, and they have a team that will, hit timely. It's not a team that 1 through 9 is going to beat you out of the gate every day, but they have different hitters step up every day. So like today, Bub Terrell and Chris Rembert were the guys that hit. Tomorrow it might be Chase Fralick and Bristol Carter. Then you have the McCrane brothers that have came on and added to this team. So they just figure out ways to beat you, and they're very competitive. And at home, Thompson gets them to play. He gets their crowd into it. He will do things during a game when they play at Auburn. He changes the tempo of a game. He will, he'll do that through his pitching, through how he approaches the umpires. And I think you'll see that in this weekend series. He will do things to change the tempo of the game with the crowd when he needs to. D-Mac, you read Texas hitters off. It's a lineup of 300 and homers. So it's the toughest lineup that Auburn will play all year. But that being said, I have confidence in their pitching. I think Auburn gets 2 out of 3. And I'll say I think they get it by winning games 1 and 3. I thought for a minute I might say games 1 and 2, but I don't know that I can think that Jackson Saunders might get game 2. But Petrovic has been really good in the games 3, and I think they get 2 out of 3 this weekend. I like Auburn here, and after they win this series, again, I think all year we're going to hear more and more about Butch Thompson. And at the end of this year, Auburn's either going to have to figure out a way to step up and pay more, or losing to a bigger baseball school.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think these are your 2 best teams in the SEC, squaring off this weekend. And that includes, teams like Arkansas and Mississippi State. I have them on the outside. So I think all 3 of these games are going to be very competitive games. I don't think you're going to see either team win by 4, 5, 6 runs or run rule the other this weekend. It's going to be maybe the best baseball series of the weekend in the SEC, and it's happening in week 2 of conference play. So that's going to bring us to the Arkansas South Carolina series, traveling to Founder Park in South Carolina. Kevin, get us started on this one.
So you have Arkansas, and I look at this series. South Carolina's Amp Hill and Josh Gunther, we mentioned him earlier. That's 2 really good pitchers for South Carolina. Arkansas has been up and down hitting wise, but Arkansas has been consistent in the fact that they can roll out 3 good starters. And so I think, you have to look at that. Geichel and Gunther are your Friday night starters. And even though Geichel in the past has been a little inconsistent, he's been pretty good this year. He's had a game or two where maybe he wasn't elite, but his ERA is in the low twos. So he's been pretty good overall this year. And again, South Carolina's lineup has just struggled to hit the ball. Will Craddock's hit it well. Other than that, it's been very up and down from one game to the next about one of their hitters and that. So excuse me, it makes this series tough. And I think South Carolina has historically had good crowds, and I think that's the test this weekend. Will their fan base show up to watch this team and try to bring some energy to this team who's going to need it? Arkansas is a team, like we mentioned. They took 2 out of 3 from Mississippi State. This is a series that if they could go in here and get a sweep, they immediately start out 5-1. That puts that levels them up, at the top of the league. Part of me wants to say that I think they can do that, but I do think South Carolina will figure out a way between Gunther and Hill to get game 1 or 2. But I think Arkansas wins 2 out of 3 here. They're just too strong in this series to not get 2 out of 3. It wouldn't surprise me if Arkansas swept, but I'm going to give South Carolina. I really think South Carolina will get Friday night's game. The way they played Florida last Friday, I think if they can bring that same energy, and Gunther can pitch a good 6 or 7 innings, and they go to their pen, figure out a way to score 3 or 4 early, I think that's the one that they can get. And then I see Arkansas getting the next 2. Sweet, your thoughts on that?
I think they're going to get swept again. They're just not consistent in anything they do. Not hitting the ball well. They're not pitching well. The one thing that they have done consistently under Paul Mainieri is lose game 3 of SEC series. They are 0-13 in game 3s against SEC teams and Clemson, which is their big rival. So he hasn't won a Sunday game as an in the SEC at South Carolina. So if they get one, it's going to be Friday or Saturday because they're not winning on Sunday. I don't think they're going to win either of those 2 either. Arkansas's pitching well. They're hitting well. Had a great series against Mississippi State. Took 2 out of 3. A top 5 team. Van Horn's got them playing well early in the year. Just consistency. I think they get a sweep here. DMAC?
Yeah, I think Arkansas wins this series. I want to point out the leading hitter for the South Carolina Gamecocks. The freshman Will Craddock was my number 1 breakout player to watch for them going into the season. So nailed it on him. And what's crazy is he did not play the first 4 games of the season. They put him in a little bit in that 5th game, hit the ball well. He's got 5 home runs as a freshman now. And they finally moved him today to, I think, the 3-hole or the 4-hole. That way, hopefully, some guys can get on base when he's up. He does present the biggest power piece in their lineup and contact piece right now. I think Arkansas takes 2 out of 3. I'm with you, Kevin. I think it's, and you, Sweets. If they win one, it's going to be Friday or Saturday. I could see Hunter Dietz struggling a little bit, putting some guys on base from Arkansas. So they could have an opportunity on Saturday to get a win if Phillips can pitch well. So yeah, give me Arkansas to take 2 out of 3, and that brings us to the Alabama-Florida series. Alabama got swept in a tough series on the road where their bats started to come alive a little bit more than they had been. They are hitting 15th in the SEC with a 267 average right now. This Gators pitching staff is really good. I am going to take the homeboys though to take 2 out of 3. Even with all the pitching struggles, the best player on the field is going to be Justin LeBron. this weekend. And that is not to take away from Brendan Lawson, who's having a great year, hitting over 425 with 10 bombs, 28 RBIs. But this Florida staff their hitting staff has been a little unpredictable for me at times. Not to take away from the Carolina pitching staff, but there were essentially 18 innings this weekend where Florida couldn't get a hit. And I think Alabama is going to be able to apply a little pressure while they're at home. So give me Bama to take 2 out of 3 against a really good pitching staff at Florida. Sweets, what are your thoughts?
I like Florida to get 2 out of 3 here this weekend. I think that they came into the SEC and hit the ball a little better. Um, I just think they're a better team, better coached, more talented. And like I said, now Alabama does have the best player on the field in Justin LeBron, but he doesn't pitch, unfortunately for Alabama, and I think that's where they're going to run into trouble at with Florida's. Florida's going to put up some runs against this Gump pitching staff. I like Florida to win 2 out of 3, and I like them to win the first 2. They're going to drop the third game. Kev?
Yeah, so Florida and Alabama, interesting series. I for one, I still don't know what I think about Florida. They played really good against Miami. Then they turned on the next weekend against High Point and was lucky not to get swept. They swept South Carolina, but it was 2 games. The first 2 games were a toss-up. Now, you give credit to the team that won, and their pitching was dominant last weekend. But again, is that South Carolina's hitting? Now they've got to go on the road, and can that pitching be just as dominant? I like Alabama in this to get 2 out of 3 at home. I'm like both of you guys in that aspect. I think Alabama gets 2 out of 3 in this series. I think they have enough bats to score 5-6 runs, 2 out of 3 of these games and get wins. The question, though, that we really got to see, can Alabama's pitching staff step up and get through, 27 innings of solid baseball? I think if we go back at the beginning of the year, my 3 teams at the bottom of the league, no order here, but Alabama, South Carolina, and Missouri. And I still think that's the case. Those are the 3 worst teams. And I think they all got swept last week. But I'm also not someone that's incredibly high on Florida either. So give me Bama 2 out of 3. But if there's a series I'm going to regret my pick in, this is probably it come first of the week. Because Florida might sweep them.
So that's going to bring us to Georgia A&M. Kevin, want to get us rolling there?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting series from the standpoint their matchups very similar. You have both teams have really good lineups hitting the ball. I wish the series was played in Athens because the way that both these teams hit the ball, they fit that stadium. You've got Grahovic, Jordan, Sorrell, Kellner, Binderup's been good off the bench. So many guys for A&M that have hit the ball well all year. And then flip side, Georgia, you've got Jackson, Trey Phelps has hit the ball well. Henry Allen's hit the ball well. Just so many hitters from Georgia. You could go on and on. Callaway got a big hit Sunday against Tennessee. So this is a series that both these teams are capable of scoring double-digit runs 2 out of 3 of these games. And then you got pitching staffs that have shown improvement. So with Georgia, you've got Joey Votko on Friday, who's been pretty solid. But really, their best pitcher's been Dylan Vogue on Saturdays. Their number 2 has been their number 1. And I think, again, I expect him to be their best pitcher this weekend. Flip it to A&M. You've got Shane Zadal, who's been pretty good on Fridays. Against Oklahoma, he struggled a little bit. Weston Moss, who's been up and down on a Saturday guy, was their best pitcher this past weekend for A&M. And then got A&M game 2 in it where he limited Oklahoma's lineup. And then you've got, Aiden King, and then Georgia's got a combination of guys. They might start Ishikawa. but they could start a number of people in that Sunday game. Um, so I think that's the thing that's going to be interesting is which one of these pitching staff is going to step up and emerge. The series is in College Station, um, so I'm probably going to pick A&M 2 out of 3. I think if this was on a neutral field, I would go Georgia 2 out of 3, and if it was at Georgia and Athens, I would definitely go Georgia 2 out of 3. But with it being at A&M, and even though that ballpark is, I wouldn't call it a pitcher's ballpark. It's not quite as hitter friendly. So I think A&M with their, with it just simply with that home field advantage and their crowd will get 2 out of 3. But this is a series that I think every game, much like Georgia and Tennessee was this past weekend, I think every game in this series will be a battle. And I think either team could win any 3 of these games as they're being played. Sweet, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to take Georgia to get 2 out of 3 here this weekend. I love the way Georgia's hitting the ball. The pitching staff has been more consistent. Dylan Vig has been well. Ishikawa is returned to the mound from an injury, so he's doing better. Matt Scott's 3-0 on the year. Caden Elke's been good out of the bullpen. So Georgia's got some consistent pitching, and despite the early hitting woes, they've came around and hit the heck out of the ball recently. Daniel Jackson is leading the team at 415 with 14 home runs. Brennan Hudson is hitting 333 with 11 bombs and 24 ribs. Trey Phelps is hitting 387 with 8 home runs and 24 ribs. So Georgia's getting plenty of runs. Consistency, I think they're going to get 2 out of 3. The pitchers will do just enough to keep A&M off balance, and that's a hell of a hitting lineup with Caden Sorrell, Terrence Kill, and that group. Chris Hakopian's back off injury. But I like Georgia here, 2 out of 3. D-Mac?
Yeah, I like A&M in this one. I love the third base shortstop combo of 2 true freshmen and Nico Partita and Boston Kellner, both hitting over 300. You've got Wesley Jordan back in the lineup, Chris Hakopian, as you mentioned, Sweets. This is a really dangerous lineup, possibly the most dangerous in the SEC. From a hitting standpoint, I know they're 4th right now in team batting average, but they're still hitting 330 as a team. I think the home field factor plays into this quite a bit. So I'm gonna take A&M, but this is another quality series where I don't think there's just going to be, a 6, 7, 8 run win in a game here. So that's going to bring us to our last series of the weekend, Vandy at Mississippi State. You look at this Vandy team that has struggled at times this year, took 2 out of 3 at home against LSU, a Mississippi State team that has looked extremely dominant. But they lost 2 out of 3 this weekend on the road. They're 1-3, 12-0 at home. I like this Vandy pitching staff. Wyatt Nadeau had a great game against LSU last weekend. He's got a 1.5 ERA. Connor Fennell is, up and down, but 38 punch outs to only 6 walks on the season. Austin Nye is a guy who could potentially come back at any moment. And I think if he's a guy who comes back, you're going to have a really strong rotation with Fennell, Nye, and Nadeau. I like some of their top hitters, Brody Johnston, Braden Whitcomb, or Holcomb. They've combined for 18 home runs, 57 RBIs on the year. Riker Wake is getting on base a lot with a 541 on base percentage. This Mississippi State team, though, is hitting 336 as a team or 338 as a team. Ace Reese is hitting 370. Bryce Chance is hitting 436, and then Valencius, McPherson, and Duke Stone have been a really solid trio to trot out there. But I am going the other way. I'm gonna take the Vandy boys to get 2 out of 3 on the road. I think their bats are really good right now. They are second in the SEC in home runs right now, so they're hitting home runs at a really high rate, and I think that's gonna bode well for them this weekend. So give me Vandy, and I'm gonna take them to win Friday, Saturday, with Fennel and Nadu. And Colin Barsky is another guy who could be back as early as this weekend, who hit 3 home runs opening night for them. So they definitely have more power at the plate than they've ever had before. Sweets, what do you think of this series?
I'm going to disagree with you. I like Mississippi State here. I think that Mississippi State is still one of the best teams in the country, despite losing 2 or 3 to number 5 Arkansas. And they're home, and Duty Noble is a great home field advantage for Mississippi State. It's a if you've never been there as a baseball fan, I tell you need to go there and catch a series. It's a fantastic place to watch a game. They truly do have a home field advantage there, and that's going to help them take at least 2 or 3 from Vandy this weekend, if not sweeping them. Vandy looked good against LSU, but it's easy to look good against a team who's looked bad for a month straight. So I like Mississippi State here. I just think they're a more talented team, more consistent, and they're pissed off that they lost that series to Arkansas. So I think they win 2 of 3, if not sweep. Kev?
Yeah, so when I look at Mississippi State again, I've been high on them all year, and I still am. I still think they're a top 5 team in the country, even though they lost 2 out of 3 to Arkansas. They lost to Southern Miss, and then they played UCLA, really tight. Ryan McPherson and Tomas Valencius, Friday, Saturday, that's a heck of a pair. And Connor Fennell's kind of struggled some for Vandy. I don't really see him going to Starkville being able to outduel McPherson. I think Mississippi State has a real good advantage that night. I do like the Wyatt Nadeau. He's pitched well for Vanderbilt, so I like him Saturday. I'm not saying to win. I just think he will keep him competitive. Valencius is really good too, though. So I'm a believer. I think Mississippi State sweeps this series. You get to Game 3 with Duke Stone, and then whoever's Vandy throws out there. I think Mississippi State sweeps this series. Vandy lost today to Indiana 5-1, and to me, Vandy's a team that I just don't know who they are. They've got good arms, but yet their pitching has not been dominant. They've got a good lineup, but yet they go, games and score 1 run, 2 runs. A couple of weeks ago they played in a series, those series where you play different teams and they lost all 3 games. So I just don't know who this Vandy team is. They should have lost 2 or 3, in my opinion, last weekend at home. And I just don't think Mississippi State on the road, a team that after losing 2 out of 3 is going to be hungry to win each individual game. That home field advantage, like you mentioned, Sweets, it's going to be tough every game out there. There's going to be a lot of emotion for State in this series. And I just think that they're going to take it 1 game at a time and be very tough on Vandy. And I think they're going to pull out a sweep this weekend, at least 2 out of 3.
Yeah, well, hey, if I somehow happen to be right, you're gonna know who the Vandy boys are after this weekend. So
You'll know who the team of the week is
Somehow.
next week.
yeah, so
That's
that is a
right.
wrap
Somehow
on
is the key to it.
that is a wrap on our weekend previews. Before we wrap up, one quick question. What are you guys most excited to see in college or in SEC baseball? What is one question you have that you want answered this weekend? Sweets, I'm going to throw it to you first.
I want LSU's pitching staff to stand up and show us who they are this weekend. The talent is there, but the results aren't. And you can't give up double digit runs and expect to win ball games. So I want these starters, especially, and you too, Gavin Guidry. When the game's on the line, you got to close it out. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for LSU's pitching staff to show us who they are this weekend. Kevin?
Well, you took the one that I would have been too, because I want to see if they can throw strikes and not walk batters. To me, that should be their strength. But, so that being said, let me jump to something else. I will go same thing with a pitching staff, but I'm going to take the two teams and again probably what I think is the most exciting series to watch. Which pitching staff emerges between Georgia and Texas A&M? Because whichever one of those pitching staff emerges, one of those teams could be a top 10 team, and so that capability is there. So I'll take that out of those, as my what I want to see in that series. Now, watch neither pitching staff will emerge, and you'll have 3 games, 13-10. But I do think one of the pitching staffs will because they've shown promise. So, which pitching staff between Georgia and A&M? That's what I want to see.
So, yeah, what I want to see the most is, this Texas Auburn series. Who is going to win this series? In my mind, whoever wins this series is the number one team in the SEC. You've got a 2-5 matchup with the number 5 team beating number 3 this afternoon. If you want to see pitching duels, you can pick any of the 3 games, and all 3 of these pitchers are really good here. So I want to see who scrapes together just enough hits to get these wins and shows that they're scrappy enough to fight all year. Two great coaches squaring off too. So can't wait for this series. So that is what I want to see this week. So that is going to be a wrap for Southern Sports Gumbo here on Tuesday. We will be back on Thursday to really dive into more March Madness talk. We will not be talking much baseball between now and next Tuesday. So kind of all basketball for about the next week here at Southern Sports Gumbo. So remember to like, follow, subscribe, and we'll see you Thursday.